Just after 2-3 minutes, we will start.
Good afternoon, sir.
So, namaskar. So, sir, with your kind permission, can we start?
As per your convenience.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, friends, for this important lecture series under the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav of ICAR. As you know, we have to complete, we have to undertake 75 lectures to commemorate a very important event of all of us, and that is to commemorate the completion of this 75 years, which is really a proud moment for every Indian. And under that series, we have already completed 47 lectures of eminent persons. And today again, we have a very eminent personality and quite different from the earlier lectures. Earlier, we had the research, we have on the policies, the technologies, and the motivational. But today, we have on the legal aspects of land reforms in agriculture, the way forward. This is none other than a well-known personality in the field of judiciary, who has been the Chief Justice of Kerala High Court, Honorable Sri Navneet Prasad Singh Saab. So welcome, sir, for accepting our request for this important lecture and for giving us time, especially ICAR, maybe a new organization for you. Maybe you may not be knowing much about this ICAR, but I can tell you that the ICAR is the organization which is responsible for the complete food security of the country. And especially we all in India have realized its importance that during the COVID period, there was no shortage of any kind of food. And that is because of the 74 agriculture universities, that is because of 120 institutes of ICAR, that is because of 730 KVKs, Krishi Vigyan Kendras, we have got a force of 6,000 scientists. You can have 20,000 university professors, teachers, and then a large number of farmers. So it's a big network which we have got. And that network is really very vibrant. You can see the green revolution, the white revolution, yellow revolution. Now we talk for the rainbow revolution, many kind of revolutions. They are all because of this network of agricultural research system. Friends, as you know, we have already completed 47 lectures, as I was saying, but this today's speaker, he is a well-known person in the judiciary, as I was saying, but for the sake of your knowledge, I can just briefly tell about Navneet Prasad Singh Saab. He completed his schooling from the Scindia School, Fort Gwalior, in the year 1973. He pursued the graduation from KM College, Delhi University. He pursued his LLB from Campus Law School, Delhi University. He enrolled as member of Bihar State Bar Council during 1980. And he was designated as the senior advocate for the Patna High Court during 2004. He was elevated as the judge of the Honorable Patna High Court during 2006. And he was given a very important duty, very important task, and that was as the Chief Justice of the Honorable Kerala High Court during 2017. He's a very well-known figure. You know, he was involved in the judgment related to the prohibition of liquor in Bihar. Before elevation as judge, he has practiced in Patna and Jharkhand High Court, mainly in commercial, taxation, and constitutional matters, and represented State Bank of India, Lalit Narayan Mitra University, and many other statutory bodies as also private corporate clients like Reliance Telecom, Tata Motors, Aditya Birla Group, and many more, to name a few. Friends, as we know, this lecture series is attended by our Vice Chancellors, attended by our senior officers. I can see Deputy Director General Crop Science. I can see the many Vice Chancellors. So senior officers be allowed to attend this group. And the other audience, students, and the general teachers, they attend through other platforms, the live streaming, and then the ICAR 75 lecture series.webcountyevents.com. So that is the other site which is used by those persons. And at the end of the talk, we allow a few questions if we have any doubts about the lecture. So maybe for 10 minutes, we will allow those questions. And in the meantime, our secretary there also is likely to join. So with that brief background, I would like to again thank Sri Navneet Prasad Singh Saab, who has been earlier the Chief Justice of Kerala High Court, to to deliver the talk and for agreeing to deliver this talk. I am really thankful from core of my heart on behalf of ICAR. So thank you, sir, and the floor is yours.
Namaskar and good afternoon, everybody. I may have been a judge, but to say that I'm an eminent person may not be very correct. A large number of judges all around. Now I was requested to speak. So first I was amazed that why a lawyer, because now I'm a senior advocate in the Supreme Court, being asked to speak in a gathering of agriculture scientists. But then when we got talking, a subject did crop up, and with the little time I could give, I will try and make it interesting and informative. Now, when we talk of land reforms, we presuppose that there had been some failure, that we need a reform. I will only try and go through the history and point out what the failures could be and point out other areas and leave it for you, the scientists and the authorities in ICAR, to figure out what is to be done and how it is to be done and make recommendations to the government if possible. Now, we talk of land reforms. In truth, what we are talking about is agrarian reforms. Because so far as India is concerned, it has been an agricultural economy. Right through the times. Now, if we go back to maybe 1,000 years, there were kingdoms and the kingdoms had to be run. There were no sales tax, GST and things like that, or income tax by which the kings would get fund to run the state. Indian economy or the economy of the kingdoms were basically agrarian, and therefore it was what we now understand as Lagan that was introduced upon people who were tilling the land. Now, this had various forms, various connotations, but basically it was a consideration which a tiller of the land paid for being allowed the privilege to till the land to the king. Now, it was quite a disorganized system, varying from kingdom to kingdom, between kings, different systems, till we come to the time when the East India Company landed. Now, England also had an agrarian economy. While pursuing agrarian economy, they were also pursuing the industrial economy. Now, when they came here, the East India Company, which was a private company, and it started from Nawab of Murshidabad, Calcutta, as we know it now, they found that how is this Nawab making money out of this Lagan? And they researched. They found that there was hardly any records properly maintained. So the first thing they did was they persuaded the Nawab that there should be some record keeping. And they persuaded Nawab to let them make records as to what was happening. Now, the true intention was to gather information which the Nawab himself was not aware of. That is, the potential to pay the Lagan. Having gathered those records, then they approached the Nawab and told him that, see, it is such a weird system you are having. Why don't we use this records and fix the rent as per records? And that is how the record of rights evolved. Now, once the East India Company had the record of rights and the potential, like a shrewd businessman, they made an offer to the Nawab. They told him that roughly, which you also don't know, on ad hoc basis, lump sum from time to time, you keep getting money. And approximately, let us say you get 10,000 rupees a year. Now, they had got the backdoor information and all the data they had collected. They said, we are ready to offer you 15,000. We will give you 15,000 rupees annually, and you authorize us to collect the rent, Lagan, on your behalf. That was too attractive an offer for Nawab to refuse. And that is how, for the first time, the East India Company was given the right to collect rent. They were merely rent collectors. Now, having got that right, they found that it was a big task because they had all the record. But then to go from place to place, from village to village, was a difficult task. So what they evolved was, now what we know is the Zamindari system. What they did was they caught hold of individuals and they said, see, I am giving you these 5 villages. You collect rent from these 5 villages. Your quota or your limit is fixed at rupees 100. So what you do is, irrespective of what you are able to collect, you assure payment of rupees 100 to us every year. So they subdelegated this right to these zamindars by settling villages in their favor. But the right that was settled was only of rent collection. Not knowing that this right of rent collection would become such a potent right that the zamindars then, realizing that they had to give only rupees 10 to the East India Company, and they had a free hand in collecting what they wanted, they started pressurizing the tillers, the agriculturists, to pay more and more. East India Company realized that the things were not good, and they came up with a permanent settlement. What they did was they enacted laws to fix the rent, to take this power away from the zamindars. And that is how the system was in the 18th century. But still, there were certain lacunas, and the zamindars were exploiting the situation. And the East India Company started realizing that probably they were being cheated. In turn, they were cheating the Nawab of Murshidabad in a heavy way. That they were collecting through the Zamindars rupees 15,000, 20,000, handing over 15,000 to the Nawab, keeping to themselves 5,000. In turn, the Zamindars were collecting 25,000, giving 20,000 to the East India Company and keeping 5,000 to themselves. In the process, the tillers were being squashed. Now, it's history that the Great Bengal famine came in. The East India Company did not forgive the Zamindars, and the Zamindars did not forgive or write off the rents payable by the tillers. And the tyranny started. Now, it is about that time, around about 1857, that the first war of independence started. The British Crown, having then realized that East India Company had started controlling good part of India, they nationalized East India Company. By an act of British Parliament in or around 1857, East India Company was nationalized. And that is how the Crown stepped in. It is then that the British Crown took over the administration of India, because by then they had spread their web so far and wide, so deep, that all these Nawabs and all were in their clutches. Quite a good number of them had virtually abdicated to the East India Company and hence the Crown. Now, a very interesting thing took place. Once the Crown came, they developed India as a colony. And the typical, you all will know it better, the British colonial economy set in motion. Now, the basic concept of the British colonial economy was that the colonies were to be exploited to the maximum benefit of the British people in Britain. Now, one example would be that they would harvest cotton from Gujarat, bale it, load it in ships, take it to England, weave cloth there, and sell the cloth back in India. So all the value additions and the employment, all the secondary commerce would take place in England and not in India. Because in India, the farmers were once paid and that was that. Now that is how the colonial economy was growing. The result was that there was absolutely no industrial development permitted in this country. Now, at this juncture, I just point out that at times people ask, what did the great house of Tatas or Birlas do for India in independence movement? The answer lies here. They were the people who broke this chain of colonial economy by setting up factories, industries, which the Britishers were not inclined to set up in India, so that a produce of India was utilized in India itself. So the first cotton mills, they were the BNC, that is Birmingham, Karnataka cotton mill set up by the Tatas to stop Indian cotton from going out. The mills were set up, it offered employment to the Indians for the first time. Never appreciated by the British. The steel plant, all the iron ore, the coal used to be taken from India to Britain. And steel made from there used to come back as Sheffield steel to India. Now that chain was broken by the Tatas by setting up Tisco. Now, those were the contributions in breaking, but that's another thing. Now came the independence. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, the politicians were waiting for the British to go. And they had appreciated and they had anticipated that once the British go and India becomes independent, it would be a very vibrant democracy, but an illiterate democracy. The majority of the Indians who would form this democratic setup and the voters would be agriculturists. So there had to be something done for the agriculturists to win their support. Though during the Constituent Assembly debates, when the Constitution was being framed, everyone was live to these issues. But no one could confront it straight away because it was too new for the Indian democracy to think of a revolutionary change at the grassroots level of the agriculturists. But a Congress resolution was passed saying that once India became independent and Congress came to power, land reforms, kindly read it as agriculture reforms, would be brought in a big way and help the agriculturists and alleviate them from the problems and the tyrannies of the zamindars. On the 26th of January 1950, the Constitution was adopted formally. No sooner Constitution was adopted, the government was there, and as promised, Congress brought in the Zamindari Abolition Act, which was a state enactment, the UP Act, and then the Bihar Act. No sooner the Bihar Zamindari Act was brought in, Maharaja Kameshwar Singh Dev of Darbhanga, he filed 3 suits in the district court in Darbhanga challenging the validity, constitutional validity of the act. This was transferred to the Patna High Court and was referred to a special bench of 3 judges. The arguments on behalf of the Zamindars, that is the Maharaja, were led by one of the greatest lawyers, P.R. Das, and was opposed by equally great lawyer, M.C. Sheetalwad, who was the Attorney General of India at that time. And at that time, in 1951, the argument arguments went on for 15 days, which was a very, very long argument considering the time. Though subsequently we had ultimately the Keshav Nand Bharti, which was argued in the Supreme Court for 6 months continuously. After those arguments, unanimous view of the full bench, special bench of 3 judges was that the act was wholly ultra vires the Constitution. They struck down the Zamindari Abolition Act inter alia on the ground that you had to pay full compensation as Zamindari rights was a property. But one interesting facet was Mr. P.R. Das made a very pertinent submission. In his words, the act does not abolish Zamindari at all. Instead of hundreds of Zamindars, there will be one super Zamindar. The Zamindari Abolition Act only did that. It replaced the Zamindars by the state. It did not confer any special rights on the agriculturists. It did not protect the agriculturists from anything. All the other things remained the same. The only thing was that the Zamindars were replaced by the government. The agriculturists continued to pay the same lagan. They were subjected to the same rules and regulations which they were faced with earlier. The tenancy acts were the same, where an agriculturist, if he made a pakka drain on the agriculture land, he would lose his right to till the land because he permanently altered the nature of the agriculture land. All that continued. But it was publicized that land reforms was a big thing. Unfortunately, the tiller remained the tiller. He had to pay the same lagan, now only to a different person. Anyhow, the matter came up as to what is to be done with the judgment. It is said that Mr. Sitalwad gave in writing to Mr. Nehru, who was the Prime Minister, that no point challenging the judgment in the Supreme Court because you are bound to lose. There's no way you can defend your Zamindari Abolition Act. Mr. Nehru was perturbed. And that is what led to the first constitutional amendment. Article 19.6 was introduced, or rather 19.2 was substituted. Article 31A, 31B was inserted. The 9th schedule, the draconian 9th schedule was brought in. Now the 9th schedule was that an act once having been passed by the parliament, if the parliament put it in the 9th schedule, then it was beyond challenge in court. Now the whole foundation of the constitution was the three independent powers: executive, legislature, judiciary. The judiciary had to be checking the role of the legislature. But here the legislature, by this constitutional amendment, provided that any law that we enact and put it in the 9th schedule, courts can't question it. So however arbitrary, draconian that law may be, it became beyond challenge. It's only after about 60 years that the Supreme Court started reading down the enactments in the 9th schedule and opened way to challenge it. Then, along with the Zamindari abolition, came the agriculture land ceiling. Because if you will recall, in the beginning I said, it is not land reforms, it was actually agrarian reforms that the government was looking for. So first they did away with the zamindars, then they came up with land ceiling. They said people were holding too much land and the poor people were not getting land. Very well, very appealing idea, a good idea to buy votes. But we will see the consequences. Now in Bihar, they put a ceiling of 20 acres. In most of the states, it's near about that. Now what happened? As a family unit, maybe you could get 2 units, 3 units. But that was in rare cases. But normally it was perceived that a person could not hold more than 20 acres. All the surplus land was taken and was to be distributed amongst the poor. A very noble idea. But what happened? The result was that economy of scale, as we know it, economy of scales, was lost. A person who had 100 acres of land was not only producing food for himself, but was producing far in excess of his requirement. And that excess was pushed into the markets. And the market was flush with food grains. There was surplus in the market. But the moment you fragmented and brought it down to 20 acres, then the farmer was struggling to produce enough for his own living. What to talk of adding to the market? He would sell it because he needed cash to buy some other things. But in real terms, there was hardly any generation of surplus. And therefore, what we found is from 1965 onwards, I can speak of Bihar. Till 1965, Bihar was virtually known as the food bowl for India. Bihar was surplus in rice, surplus in wheat and millets. It was the sugar bowl of India. But what happened? From 65 onwards, the land ceiling, the Zamindari abolition was already taking effect. The land ceiling was brought in. And by 71, 72, Bihar became a food deficit state. I won't say that it was just the ceiling, land ceiling, that brought about it, but that was a major factor. Now what happened? A family was left with 20 acres. What happened in the next generation? That 20 acres got distributed between the two brothers, 10 acres each. It became even more unremunerative to hold. With 20 acres, at least he could sink a borewell. But with 10 acres, borewell was not economic. He couldn't afford it. Next generation, it became 5 acres. 5 acres, he couldn't even get a tractor. Tractor for what? So the efficiency dwindled. Then there was a loss of interest. The holdings are too small. People started selling. Now I would like to just come to classic example of what happened in Kerala. I happen to be the Chief Justice there. And while in court, a very interesting act came to my knowledge, which is commonly referred to as the Paddy Land Act there. Paddy Land Act. Now, as you know, South, they survived just on rice. Till about 20, 30 years back, they had not even heard of wheat. Kerala is the most literate state of this country. Most of you will be surprised that I also found out, tried to investigate as to why Kerala is the literate state and not others. It was the rulers of Kerala, the ancestors of the famous painter Raja Ravi Verma. Way back in 1870s, they had passed a decree making education compulsory and non-education penal. In the sense, in 1872, a law was enacted there that if the parents didn't send their children to schools, the parents would be penalized. They knew the importance of education. It is because of that Kerala has 100% literacy, and not now, for last decade, several decades, which unfortunately Delhi realized only 65 years after independence, that about 5-10 years back, Article 21A was added, right to education. Till now, right to education was not directly a fundamental right. Kerala had it 150 years back. Anyway, now the effect of that education, the agricultural workers dwindled. अब कोई BA करके लुंगी पहन के he will not work in a farm. कि I am a graduate, why will I work in a farm? Now my place is an office. Now if you don't work in a farm, where do you get your rice from? And Kerala, as you know, right from beginning, they have been alternating between the socialist, I won't say communist because that's a taboo there, it's a socialist government, and Congress. So it is 5 years one, 5 years another. Now they had to provide rice to everybody because that was a basic necessity. And the agriculturists, they had become graduates and would not step in. So they had to pass this Paddy Land Act, prohibiting anyone from converting the notified paddy lands to any other use. So much so that a person wanted to expand his house because he had a number of children and he wanted more room. He was not allowed to do it because he would then encroach upon his own paddy land. Now that was one way of achieving and ensuring, so they thought, that there would be adequate production of paddy. But it didn't work that way because they said, all right, we will not convert to any other use, we'll leave it fallow. So then they had to enact another part of it. That if it is found that for 2 years you have not grown paddy, then the state will resume the land. So on one end, you create one problem. To solve it, you create another problem. To solve that, you create the third problem. Now, the problem of agriculture labor is so acute there that I was profoundly surprised to find that in Cochin, where the High Court is located, it's not at Trivandrum, it's in Cochin. And Kerala means, Keral means coconut, La means land. So land of coconut. The coconut we get to eat or drink, as you may say, comes from Tamil Nadu, not Kerala. I said I was scandalized when I had to pay 35 rupees for a coconut. I said in Patna I get it for 25, which is not a land of coconut. Why in Kerala it is 35? Then the agriculture minister who was there in one of the seminars, he said, sir, I have a 10-acre coconut plantation, but I don't get a single coconut to eat. Why? Yes, sir, which graduate will climb up the tree? So we wait for the coconut to ripen and fall. And that is how we have the highest production of coconut oil. All the coconut that you get in the market to have coconut water or the coconut cream comes from Tamil Nadu. Now see, that is how things impact. Now, what I'm just trying to indicate is that we have always thought in short term. We have always made it unremunerative as a vocation. An agrarian economy was put in shackles. You can't have more than 20 acres of land. You can't afford economic farming. If there were pesticides you wanted to spray, you can't afford aerial spraying. And therefore, you got beaten in international market when it came to agriculture. Now, one of the roles which I think ICAR was formed with was how to increase production, work for the farmers, and suggest means so that India becomes independent in matters of agriculture produce. But don't take it otherwise. But Ukraine crisis, what has it shown to us? Sunflower oil. 60 to 70% of Indian requirement of sunflower oil comes from a small country like Ukraine. 80% of barley used by the beer industry comes from Ukraine. I was very surprised. Whereas we in India keep producing rice and wheat and then fight for MSP to protect the farmers. We will produce things which is not required, in which we are surplus. But somehow, the government is not able to guide and carry the agriculturists to change the products, change the cropping system, go to innovative farming. Why should we import sunflower oil? We can grow sunflower here. We have land at least 10 times what Ukraine has. But no, our farmers will produce only wheat and rice. And when there is overproduction, which is there every year, the prices will fall. Then they will run to the government, fix MSP and buy it. The government will buy, half of which will rot before it is sold again, just to appease the farmers. Ask the farmers to change from rice, paddy to barley, sunflower, palm oil that we are importing from Thailand. So much of agriculture produce is being imported. Now, all this is happening because an agrarian reform has gone wrong. Now, I remember about 20 to 30 years back, there was a television interview of Mr. late Dr. Balram Jhakar. You all will be more familiar, who was the agriculture minister also. Sikkar or Alwar, somewhere, he had a farm, huge farm. So the first question the anchor asked him, he said, you say this farm is an 80-acre farm. How are you holding 80 acres? And he was an agriculture minister then. He said, well, if the laws go berserk, we have to find ways to circumvent it. 20 acre is mine, 20 acre is my younger brother's, 20 acres is my another brother, and 20 acre, another brother, 4 of us. And we have pulled in, we have got 80 acres, and now it is economic to have a modern farm with innovative farming methods. I have got the irrigation system from Israel. This barren land is now a fertile land. With 20 acres, I could not have done it. It would have lay as a barren land. And I don't know whether it's correct or not. He said on that kinu, the fruit we have today, he said it was developed in my farm. It's a cross between orange and Mosami. And he had developed it. Now he said, had I got only 20 acres, I wouldn't even have dreamt of doing it. Now that is what you would get. So you've got to create a balance. So somewhere along the line, our agrarian reforms have gone wrong. As I've shown, the abolition of Zamindari didn't change anything for the agriculturists. The only thing was to whom they pay the rent or the taxes, the person changed. The laws remained the same. Had there been a law which made the tillers absolute owner of the land, which in most of the countries they are, they can't. Now, if a tiller wants to set up a petrol pump on his land being next to a highway, he can't do it. So it is for you people to think as to what actually needs to be done to protect the agriculturists themselves against themselves. You all have seen the law which created such a big stir. I am yet to understand as to what was wrong with those laws. It gave more option to the farmers. Now, I had gone to Thailand and I was pleasantly surprised. This is just by the way, to find at the airport there, lychee custard. So I was very thrilled. It must have come from India. When I saw it was made in Switzerland from lychee concentrate exported from Thailand. I came to know that Thailand produces the lychee we have in Bihar at least about 10 times that amount, that lychee Thailand is producing. They have lychee wine, lychee squash, so many things they have. In India, unfortunately, we don't. The reason is that no agriculturist in India has land big enough to set up a unit to manufacture lychee squash or things like that. Now people have to go buy and bring it to some other unit and set it up. So surely something has gone wrong and we need further reforms. If anything, it is for you scientists to suggest to the government that there is something wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for putting a very difficult topic in a very common language, very historical perspective, and in a very simple language. Being in agriculture but not knowing the facts that why the coconut is costly in Kerala than in Tamil Nadu or in Bihar, or the examples which you gave from Ukraine, from Thailand, and so we are not knowing that that's really because we are more concerned about the research, that it is because of this land ceiling and it is because of the different perspective which has evolved. So thank you very much, sir, for this important topic, important points which you have given, an important message which you have given, that we have to really look into these aspects also in addition to what we are doing, the research, the hardcore research. Because it's not only the research which can pave the way for more productivity, it is also the land reforms which are equally important, which also can pave the way for more productivity, for economics, for having the economic value of the product which you have, the processed food, many more things. Really, it has given a lot of food for thought. And because of your rich experience, I can see that how lucid, in a lucid way, you have put up all these things, interconnecting from the Britishers' time, that how it all started, and then how this 1857, that first freedom fight, how the things got changed, then how again this Zamindari Act was abolished, but there were some challenges. So, everything well connected and well perceived and well explained. I think it's one of the finest lectures I've heard in a very simple language, which anybody without having any knowledge of any history or any agriculture or any legal background, they can understand all your points. So I'm really so thankful to you for your this very elaborative talk, and for giving us time, and for giving the new dimension for our thinking. In agriculture, I think we have to really deliberate on this. But if some audience, if they have anything, they can raise the hand, or they can just put it in the chat box. But I'm sure because of this well-explained lectures, there should not be any doubt about what Singh Saab has explained. But still, if there is some point, we can allow those questions. Everybody is smiling, sir. Maybe, can you unmute VC, Arpit?
Sure, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, Honorable Justice, sir. I am a Vice Chancellor, Kerala Agriculture University. Thank you for your, you are very lucidly highlighted the issues there.
I hope I was not very wrong with Kerala.
Sure, sir. So, no, it is a very neutral, balanced opinion, just like from an outsider. And of course, not only that, mostly literate in our state of Kerala. The cost of labor is also one of the highest in the country.
Because of literacy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You rightly pointed out. And also, as you told, it is highly fragmented. 99% of the farm holdings in the state of Kerala is small and marginal. As you told, the economy of scale is really, practically it is very difficult. Whether it is, mechanization, everything, we need some kind of a small farm mechanism, that kind of a thing which suits to the individual farm holdings. And also, you have rightly pointed out the innovation in agriculture is also, it has to come up a large way. So from your experience being a Chief Justice of Kerala State, what from agriculture, of course, you have given the responsibility to we scientists to suggest to the policymakers, but being a Honorable Justice of High Court, you might have come up with several issues. So what do you think that a reform that can be from your mind, I would like to, so that we will think it over, sir.
Well, so far as Kerala is concerned, the first reform that you require is to undo the concept of loco-coolie. I'm sure you are aware of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I had cases coming from the agricultural sector where a farmer, he was getting farm laborers from Bihar, and he was stopped. The laborers were assaulted, and the local union was forcing him to take the laborers from the locality. The result was he could not do anything. So he approached the High Court straight away.
Yes.
And I had passed orders, if you can ask someone, they'll be able to trace out, I had issued orders directing that union secretary, if found 5 kilometers within the land of this petitioner, he would be arrested. And if he interfered in any manner with the requisitioning of labor, he would be arrested and detained. And no court would grant him bail except the High Court. It was criticized by a lot, but at the same time, it was appreciated by majority. I don't know if the Director General knows the concept of loco culi in Kerala. Loco means looking. So for mere looking, you have to pay.
It is called noku kuli.
Loco culi.
Noku means seeing.
See. So if you get a truckload of your furniture from Delhi and you have to unload it, you can't get your people to do it. You have to go to the local union office and they will assign. But if you get it done through your own man, they will just sit there and see, and you have to pay for seeing. This happens at the railway station.
Very surprising. One of our audience is asking, sir, in your experience, do you think we suffer from both the belated enactment of law losing the advantages and the early enactment faced with opposition?
We don't suffer from either of them. We have enough brains to do the right thing. But unfortunately, the choice is wrong. The choice is motivated. It is vote bank politics that plays more than national politics.
Yeah.
We sacrificed the agriculture potential of this country on vote bank politics. I don't say that we should have the capitalist system, like a farmer should be a big landlord having 400 acres. No, I don't say that. But at least see economy of scales. We have most brilliant legislatures. There's no doubt about it. But the considerations somehow get misplaced.
There is another question which I don't think it's connected with this talk, but still I can just put forth for you. How to change the cropping system of rice and wheat system to barley? I think the researchers have to answer more. But if you have any
that's not a legal problem. That is how you persuade people.
Yeah.
How do you persuade people to do it? Now, I'll give you a concrete example. In Bihar, we produce both wheat and paddy. Until 1965, we were producing the maximum wheat and paddy and feeding the country. That is before Bhakra Nangal came in and Punjab and Haryana took off. But why must we continue to produce wheat and paddy and overproduce it where the prices crash below remunerative level, and then fight with the government that fix minimum statutory purchase price to support the farmers? Why? It is something like Maruti, if it comes today and says, no, I will produce 1 lakh, but I can sell only 50,000. Demand is only for 50,000. Now the government must step in and buy the balance 50,000. Why? There the government will say, we can't help you, don't produce.
True.
So why can't the government say, we will not provide minimum support price? You change your cropping pattern. You all know it better. Moong dal, arar dal, rajma, everything is being imported. Why? Why can't we give up rice and paddy and shift to millets? Once you do that, millets is remunerative. There won't be any fight of MSP. You will be self-sufficient. Now, with all this problem going on, Thailand, they were tightening the screws with regard to palm oil. We were having problems. We have the entire Assam area where we can produce as much palm oil as you want. Now it is how you look, how the policymakers, and you are the scientists who will persuade the policymakers as to what is the right thing to do. It's not just growing crop is your scientist's work. It's the economy. You may develop a seed which may give you the maximum yield. But if you sell the seed at uneconomic prices, no one will buy. You let the Americans come in with genetically treated seeds. They have a tie-up with the agriculturists that you have got to buy this. The next generation of seed, it's so genetically treated that the crop will die, so that you are forced to buy. Now, agriculturists in India always produced wheat and saved some of it as seed for the next year. Potatoes grown, saved some for the next year as seed. But if you go in for these genetically produced seeds, that's the end. Now, people have to think on those lines.
Yeah. So, thank you, sir. And that's what the ICAR is striving for. We are developing the biofortified crops indigenously through ICAR. We are trying to develop all, to incorporate all the nutrients which are required for this. And this genetically modified also we are now trying to develop through this agriculture research system, so that we
now
do not
just if now that I have spoken so much, I might as well tell you one, because I've been closely moving to Sabor, that is one of your premier agriculture colleges, quite near to Patna and nearer to my home, Munger, and Pusa, Samastipur.
Yeah.
Now in Sabor, once when I went, one of your scientists, he had taken over as vice chancellor there. A wonderful man, really transformed that whole place. I found trucks standing there and they were loading this banana saplings. I said, Mr. Chaudhary, what's that? He started laughing. He said, every day we are sending 2 truckloads of some lakh pieces of banana saplings to guess what? I said, where? To your state, Kerala. Now, Bhagalpur with genetic, that your tissue culture, they were making saplings, banana saplings at Bhagalpur, Sabor, and sending it to Kerala. And that was remunerative. I went to Samastipur. Now, I don't know how many of you know that you have Pusa in Delhi.
We are from Pusa.
Now, what is Pusa?
Tips of USA.
And where did it come from?
Yes.
Samastipur.
Samastipur, the very original Pusa Institute. Yeah.
Because in 1933, after earthquake, the whole building and everything was destroyed. So temporarily it was moved to Delhi. It never went back. They developed it again there at Samastipur. The phenomenal place. The varieties of teak wood they are developing, teak plants at Pusa.
Presently, sir, this Pusa Institute, which is called Indian Agricultural Research Institute, is the premier institute of ICAR, located in ICAR, located in New Delhi. And presently we are sitting there only.
Oh.
Thank you, sir. So thank you very much, sir, for giving this additional information. And on behalf of Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and on behalf of all the audience, which included our many vice chancellors, many deputy director generals, the key officers of ICAR universities, and our research system, we have been greatly benefited. And there are many hidden audience who are connected through the live streaming, who are connected to another platform, whom we are not able to see, but they are able to listen to us. So from their behalf also, sir, I thank you very much. And we request you that once the situation is normal, we will have your physical lecture also in our very big auditorium, which has a capacity of 1,200 persons. So thank you very much, Singh Saab, for this wonderful talk and for accepting our invitation, and especially for this noble cause where we are celebrating this India's 75 years of independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Thank you, sir. Namaskar. And thanks to all the audience.